Okay. The Senior Bowl was awesome. Really, really awesome. There were so many great things about that week that I don't even know where to begin. Also, hi, by the way, a lot of you maybe have never seen my face before. This is what it looks like. We're doing a little bit different format today because I just got through a very long season here on the film room. So we're going to drink some Glenfiddich 15 and talk about my week down in Mobile, the players that I felt had a really good week, and also just the experience of going to the game itself. I have to credit Jim Nagy and all of his staff. It was an incredible event. Every single day there was stuff to do. I mean, we had, weigh-ins 7 a.m. the first day, and then you have 2 practices. There's a parade, there's speaking events. Obviously, there's all like the dinners that everybody goes to, and like social events and all the bars. It's a huge networking event kind of built around a week of football, and it was different than anything I'd ever done before, more fun than anything I'd ever done before, and also just the ability to kind of see these players live. It gives an entirely different context for when you're watching them on tape. You can actually see how their ball cuts through the wind in a cold temperature, like with Jordan Love, who I'm going to talk about a little bit. Seeing him throw and then seeing Anthony Gordon throw back to back, that puts a lot of things into context when you can see that ball live. But beyond just the practices, the whole week itself was an amazing experience. I had so much fun. And then on actual game day itself, the tailgate atmosphere was incredible for teams that weren't technically real. I mean, there was college football fans from everywhere that came down to this game. I saw jerseys for maybe 20 different teams. I accidentally wandered into like 3 different cookouts, and they made me plates before they even knew my name. I mean, the Southern hospitality was real down there. And I don't think I've ever been that well fed in my entire life than my week down in Alabama. And then, on the field itself, like I had a field pass to kind of go get some B-roll 5 minutes before the game. And I think just because I had like a nice camera, maybe they assumed I was a photographer, so they just let me stay. So I was on the sidelines for the game the whole time, just getting really badass footage, and there was some player family members that I ran into and met and had nice discussions about them, and it was an amazing experience. Like, I wasn't just in the press box, like I was on the field. If you guys watched the game live and you saw that Jalen Hurts to Jawan Jennings touchdown, I was the guy that Jawan Jennings almost ran into. If I was about 3 feet over to my right, I definitely would have caught a knee to the dome, so happy that worked out. But I got a great shot of that touchdown just because they let me stay on the field. I didn't cause any problems. Obviously, I'm not going to abuse that privilege, but it was just an unexpected, amazing experience to be on the sidelines for that game. Again, thank you to Jim Nagy for kind of opening it up in the last couple years to independent media like myself. Hopefully, we can do it again next year. I really can't wait to go back. But as for the players, the reason why you're probably watching this, I can't talk about all of them. There's 90 plus players that, we're on those rosters, and all of them, we took notes on all of them, and I filmed practice so I can go back and watch the ones that I couldn't watch the first time. I can't talk about all of them. What I can do is talk about the 10 players that I think had the best week and kind of made themselves the most money. Not all of them are going to be high round picks, but some of them were, maybe day 2 guys that move into day 1 conversation, or day 3 guys that solidify themselves as day 2 guys, or even day 3 guys that elevate themselves from maybe priority free agent to a very easily draftable grade. There's a lot of guys that made a lot of money in those 3 practices, and so we're going to talk about them today. Starting with number 1 on the list. Well, I guess it's 1 and 2, because I couldn't just talk about one wide receiver. I really have to shout out 2 of them, and that's Van Jefferson from Florida and Denzel Mims from Baylor. Both of them had phenomenal weeks. Sorry, water break. Jefferson in particular, he's basically Keenan Allen to me. Not the biggest guy, not the fastest guy, not the best hands, but stylistically, he's got such loose hips. He's such a really well-developed route runner. He knows the mental side of the game. I mean, he used 5 different releases and 5 different reps. These corners had no idea what the hell he was doing off the line. It was just it was a joy to watch because, I mean, you look at this guy. He's an older prospect, I'll give you that. And that kind of came up too. People were wondering, do you care he's going to be 24 years old as a rookie? I don't, because he already plays like a 24-year-old. He plays like a 3 or 4 year veteran in the league that really knows what he's doing as a route runner. I think as a day one starter for basically any team. I mean, you throw him in as your wide receiver too. He's going to get open day one against veteran NFL corners. Like he's that kind of dude. So will he go in the first round? Probably not because of his age, but there's nothing wrong with him at all. Like, he's not the most physically gifted guy, but he is an out-of-the-box starting wide receiver for at least 6 or 7 years at minimum. So I think, to me, that's valuable enough to spend a day 2 pick, an easy day 2 pick, and know that you're probably not going to miss. No matter what, he's going to be a good player. So he's got a lot of value to me. And then Denzel Mims, I got a lot of flack on Twitter for saying this. Stylistically, he reminds me a lot of DeAndre Hopkins. Not the same ball skills, but in terms of physicality, how he really, he takes whatever leverage he wants in the middle of a route. Like if you force him inside, but he's got to go outside, he's just going to go through you. Again, not the same skills at the point of the catch as Hopkins, but how they run their routes, how they just take leverage by force, how they're so physical in their stems and releases, how they use length to kind of separate at the point of the catch, like that last second push off. The one that George Kittle got called on in the Super Bowl, they'll call that on tight ends. They won't call it on wide receivers. He does it all the damn time, and he's really good at it. So he stylistically, again, reminds me a lot of Hopkins with maybe even a little bit more deep speed, if I'm being honest. So again, he's another easy, I don't want to say he'll sneak into the late first round because receivers so deep this year. He's not getting out of the second. No way. He's way too good. Probably one of the better value wide receivers in this whole class, just because I think if he goes to the right team that knows how to use him and just put him at X receiver and let him go beat smaller corners up, he could be just as productive as some of these first round guys. It kind of ties into a greater theme that maybe I'll touch on later this draft season. You don't need to draft a receiver high in this class because you're going to get Van Jefferson in the second round. You're going to get Denzel Mims in the second round. Gandy Golden, Courtney Davis, Chase Claypool, depending on if you see him a tight end or wide receiver. There's so many guys in this class. You don't need to take Jerry Jeudy in the top 10 or Ruggs or Lamb or any of those guys. They're great. Don't get me wrong, they're worth the pick, but if with the receiver class this deep, you don't need to. It's probably going to hurt them, to be honest, because there are so many valuable receivers that are going to be available at day 2 that you don't need to take one in the top 15. Personally, I wouldn't, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Again, not saying their talent isn't worth it, but positional strength-wise, there's no reason. Moving on to the quarterbacks, or really just one quarterback that I want to talk about, and that's Jordan Love. I think he answered a lot of questions there, especially on day 1. It was really cold, it was really windy, and just seeing how his ball cut through that wind, and then you watch Anthony Gordon throw it, and it just... They're two different guys. They're two different levels of prospect. Gordon, he had some nice throws. He throws with anticipation, got some good ball placement. Do I want him to play outside in Soldier Field in December? Nope. I just don't trust him to do it. When the wind's whipping, temperatures drop, can't feel your hands, you need somebody with the athletic traits to be able to fight against bad weather. That's why Josh Allen's in Buffalo. That's why Mitch, even though he hasn't quite worked out in Chicago, he's got a good arm. He's got good athletic traits. That was a big part of the decision to take him in the first place. Denver's the same thing. Drew Lock's got a cannon. You need that in case you got to play in a blizzard in the middle of December. It's a big consideration. And so I think Love definitely stood out in that regard as the most athletically gifted quarterback and with the best arm talent as well in that whole group, even over Justin Herbert. The thing that I don't know, because I wasn't present, but I know some people that were, said he interviewed very well. And interviews are going to be a big thing for him because you have to answer some questions about how much the change in system and coaching staff and all the changes in personnel kind of affected his 2019 season versus the 2018 season, where people were thinking about him maybe being a top 5 kind of guy. From what I've been told, he interviewed very strong. I don't know that for sure. I can't testify to it, just reporting what I've been told. When you combine how he looked on the field in practices, really throwing a nice deep ball against the wind, just cutting through that wind. And then the interview process and obviously the measurables were very impressive too. He had a very strong week. I think he solidified himself as a first-round pick. He's not getting out of the first round. And I think if the rumors are true that the Colts are looking at him as a top 20 pick, which apparently is like the worst kept secret in the NFL right now, that Indy really wants him, it would make sense because, again, he's really gifted, and if he interviewed well and they believe in his ability to develop under Frank Reich, maybe a little bit better than Jacoby Brissett does, then yeah, he makes a lot of sense as a top 20 pick for them. Does he go there? I don't know, but I think at this point that it's likely that he goes in the top 20 picks, whether it's to Indy or somewhere else, just because the tools that you have to work with are just so incredibly impressive, and I can't imagine him going anywhere after the top 20. At this point, I really can't. Oh, man. I don't know if you've ever had Glenfiddich 15. Nectar of the Gods. What were we talking about? Oh, yeah, number 4. Josh Jones. He was really a star in one-on-ones. The Michigan kid got him once, I think, in team period, coming off the edge, just because, I mean, his explosion off the snap is insane. But for the most part, Jones handled everybody in the one-on-ones. The big concern that people have with him is length. He's got sub 34-inch arms, which for a tackle that's 6'5" is not ideal. But we've seen tackles with shorter arms, but that still have great feet and hand placement and technique and leverage and all that kind of stuff. We've still seen them succeed before, so it's not necessarily like a death nail for him as a prospect. I personally think, and again, he works with Paul Alexander, who's he's been around forever as an offensive line coach, and usually guys that work with Paul end up with pretty good careers. And so he's been kind of working with Josh ever since he started going through the pre-draft process. I think he's done some work with Footwork King as well, who's a great athletic trainer based out of the Houston area. And so he's got a really good team behind him, and it really showed in the one-on-ones. His hand placement was excellent. His feet were great. His leverage was great. Again, he got beat by Uche, I think, once. But other than that, I don't really remember him getting beat. Maybe more than 2 or 3 times throughout the first couple days. So again, he was really, really impressive from a technical standpoint, from an athletic standpoint. The one question people have is length, but I don't think it's really going to matter that much for him. Remember Joe Thomas didn't have exceptional length either, but if you have good feet and good technique, you can lock people down no problem. It's not that big a deal to me. So again, Josh Jones, fantastic week. He's an easy first-round pick, especially at a position of need for almost every team at offensive tackle. You really can't have enough of them. He's going to go really high. And then speaking of offensive linemen, Lloyd Cushenberry, the center from LSU, holy shit, that dude is strong. I mean, I don't think anybody was able to dig him out with power. Kinlaw got him one time on a counter swim because they caught him leaning a little bit, but just in terms of being able to get into his chest and dig him out with a bull rush, you can't do it. I mean, he is 6'3", 315, which is already pretty damn big, especially for a center in these days when a lot of people want like lighter centers that are more towards 300, that can move and zone block and all that kind of stuff. He's got exceptional power. He has exceptional leverage. I mean, when he dips that butt low, you're not moving him. And the piece de resistance, or whatever you want to call it, of his athletic profile is his length. A center with 34 and 5/8 inch arms is rare. Exceptionally rare, especially for a guy that's only 6'3". I mean, the ratio of arm length to height for him is like top 1% of top 1%. It's ridiculous. I mean, those arms are longer than J.J. Watt, longer than Jadeveon Clowney, almost as long as Myles Garrett, who's 6'5.5". That kind of length at center, that's part of the reason why Kinlaw couldn't really get him with power, because Kinlaw's also got 34 and 5 inches arms, which is super long, but Kinlaw's also 6'5". Usually what Kinlaw does is he gets really low, he outreaches you, and most interior offensive linemen are not going to be able to outreach Kinlaw. He gets in your chest, you can't get into his, show's over. Cushenberry was able to get just as low as Kinlaw. It's 313 versus 315. 34 and 5/8 inch versus 34 and 5/8 inch. I mean, it's just a brick wall running into another brick wall, and you can't move him. And I think that was a big part of the reason for Joe Burrow's success. Not saying it was the entire reason, but he really had great pocket integrity at LSU. I mean, they had a guard there too, Damian Lewis, at the Senior Bowl, who also had a great week. His pocket integrity in front of him, he always had room to step up because you can't move Cushenberry at all. At all. I mean, he went against a slew of defensive tackles in the SEC. They're all going to be first, second round picks. Nobody could really move him. And so to see what he did in the one-on-ones and obviously on tape at LSU too, I don't know if he's going to go in the first round because, again, if you do go in the first round as a center, you have to have really good movement skills like Garrett Bradbury or Alex Mack or one of those guys these days. It's only like the rare kind of zone centers that typically go that high now. But for more of a gap scheme center that does have some movement skills, I'm not saying he's slow. He's just slower because he's bigger. But for a gap scheme center that's an exceptional pass protector, I don't see him getting out of the second round. And he's going to be a 10-year starter and a damn good one at that. I can't wait to watch him in the pros because wherever he goes, it's going to be an upgrade for outside of maybe like 3 or 4 teams. Wherever he goes, he will be an upgrade at center. Guarantee it. He is such a damn good pass protector. And especially these days, you need it. You need to have pocket integrity up the middle if you want to survive against teams like San Francisco, or you want to survive against, even the Chiefs. Like if you want to survive Chris Jones coming at you up the middle, who was a disruptive force in the Super Bowl. You need a great pass protecting center. And that's what he can do. I don't know where he's going to go. Maybe he'll end up even going to Cincy with Joe Burrow. But he fits everywhere. He really does. And speaking of Burrow, by the way, that is an excellent segue to today's sponsor, who I've actually used for a long time before they even knew who I was. I approached them because I really only like to work with sponsors that I use and that I like, because I don't want to represent a product that I don't use or like. And that's Sports Info Solutions. You've probably seen them in the descriptions for my videos going back months now. They are my favorite football analytics site out of anybody. They do cost a subscription, I will say that up front, but the data they have, the filters they have, so you can sort any situation, you can sort by route concept, by coverage concept, obviously down and distance, field position, for every single position. Like they have passing stats for quarterbacks and route stats for receivers and defensive stats, everything you can imagine for every single position. They track it and they have it available at such a phenomenally deep level, deeper than any other website I've ever used. I mean, to get comparable stats, you'd have to buy that like $250,000 package on Pro Football Focus that really only teams and media outlets have access to. But this site, anybody can get access to it. I really encourage you guys to get a free trial there. Use my promo code. You will get a free copy of their rookie handbook that includes a lot of notable and interesting statistics that you need to know for this upcoming rookie class. I really can't speak highly enough of them. I wouldn't be able to do what I do without them. So if you are watching this and you're a content creator, or you're a coach, or a player, or you just want to be godlike at fantasy football, because I used it for fantasy football too, I highly encourage you to check them out. Get a free trial, poke around, see if you like it, and again, just check them out, because once you see what they have to offer, you're not going to want to use any other site ever again. So again, thank you to Sports Info Solutions for responding to me when I reached out to you, because I really enjoy working with you. It's a great company. Again, thank you to them. But moving on to second half of the prospects I want to talk about. We're going to move over to the defense now. Number 6 is Javon Kinlaw, who I already talked about a little bit talking about Cushenberry. Other than when he went against Cushenberry, he moved everybody. Again, we're talking about a 315-pounder with 34 and 5-inch arms that plays 3 technique, but could play really anything from 5 technique all the way down to, I don't think he's an ideal nose tackle, but you could do it just because he's so damn powerful. Like, you could easily do it. So he's incredibly versatile. To me, he's basically like early career Aroldis Chapman, where he's got one pitch, which is power, but it is a hell of a pitch. I don't think anybody can hit it other than like the rare guys like Cushenberry. I mean, when he gets under you, it's over. It's absolutely over. I remember him walking out, and I was sitting there with my buddy EJ Snyder from the Bears Over Beers podcast, and we were kind of taking bets in the audience with some of the other SB Nation guys about how much he weighed. This was before weigh-ins, and he was coming out for the introductory press conference, and nobody guessed over 295. I mean, he didn't look 315. but he is so lean and rocked up and dense and just muscles on muscles on muscles that when he weighed in at 315, I missed his weigh-in. EJ had to tell me that he weighed 315, and I was like, bullshit. There's no way. There's no way a dude that cut is 315. But it just, that goes to show where that power comes from. I mean, he is just a freak of nature. And to have that kind of explosiveness and strength and length, and he doesn't really need a whole lot of technical development yet because, again, there's very few human beings that can deal with him. But once he does get more technically developed, if he more frequently uses that push-pull that he's shown a couple times, the counter swim that he's shown a couple times, I think he's loose enough in the hips that he could probably develop a spin move too. I mean, once he gets all of that, you can't stop him. I mean, he is that kind of dude that you're not drafting him for what he is right now. You're drafting him for what he's going to be in 3 years. And if you have a defensive line coach that can mold him into what you think he can be in 3 years, he's an all-pro. He's Fletcher Cox is what he is, but maybe even twitchier, if that's even possible. As for where he's going to go in the draft, again, I don't know, because not every team is going to have an immediate use for him. Not every team needs a 3 technique. Not every team needs a 1 technique that shoots up the field. Not every team needs a 5 technique. So it's going to depend on who's there, who needs what, all that kind of stuff. One of the San Francisco guys of Buckner and Armstead's probably going to hit the market, so teams that need 5 techniques might snatch one of them up, which then, of course, lowers the value of Kinlaw. There's a whole lot of factors at play here for where he goes in the first round. I have no idea where it's going to be. What I do know is that if he lands in the right situation, he's an all-pro. Guarantee it. Oh, man. Oh. You may be wondering why I'm drinking this, by the way. I just got through a doozy of a season. I mean, I came back from the Senior Bowl. Again, I know the Senior Bowl video is late. I came back. I had 2 preview episodes to do for the Super Bowl. I got sick. You probably heard my voice in that last one. It was a nightmare. I earned this. And man, nothing makes you feel better about the end of the NFL season and moving into your favorite part of the year, which for me is draft season, than Glenfiddich. As for maybe another value 3 technique that will go after Kinlaw, but who I think can be just as productive and at least maybe have just as good of a career because of how developed he is already and his own kind of freakish athletic traits, that's Neville Gallimore, who I love as a prospect. He's not as small as Grady Jarrett, but he's got a lot of Grady Jarrett to him. Very loose in the hips, very good hands, very quick twitch. He's almost kind of like a little bit twitchier version of K1 Short when he was coming out of Purdue. Just somebody where, they're going to go in the second round, but they're also going to play for 10 years and be a really good pro, potentially be a Pro Bowl caliber guy that you get outside the first 32 picks. That, to me, is Gallimore. He had excellent weeks in the one-on-ones. From what I've heard, he interviewed very well. He has a really interesting backstory, growing up in Canada, being a multi-sport athlete. But a lot of the sports that he played when he was younger, like soccer and basketball, really show up in his footwork. He's just a very well-rounded player. I love everything about him. And if your team needs a pass-rushing rotational 3 technique that also brings a little bit of power, I mean, they played him at nose tackle. They didn't have to, but they did. He's just a very solid guy. If your team needs interior defensive linemen, pretty much he fits every single team. He's a really, really good player. After Gallimore, I'll kind of move out to the one edge rusher that really stuck out to me. Again, another value guy. That's Bradley Anae from Utah. He's built like a sawed-off shotgun. 6 feet, 260 pounds, real squatty body, short arms. He's got T-Rex arms. But the thing with him, he kind of reminds me a lot of Brandon Graham. Maybe not quite as explosive, but Brandon Graham and him have a similar skill set in the sense that they're built so low to the ground that if you miss them once with your punch, even if you outreach them by 4 inches, which some offensive tackles will outreach him by 4 inches, you can't really block him. The target area, because again, he's 6 feet, he's so low to the ground, the target area for his chest is so small, and his hands are so good. He's got a really wide array of moves. He showed a nice chop rip, he showed a counter spin, he showed a club, showed a little bit of power when he was able to kind of get one arm up in there and stab and use that leverage advantage, but really his bread and butter is just going to be clearing your hands on the engagement and then using that kind of low center of gravity and just small target area just to kind of slip and slide around you. He's a very, very crafty edge rusher who, again, doesn't have the quote-unquote ideal proportions. So he's not going to be going as high as a guy like Chase Young or the Iowa kid, or even Willikis from Michigan State might even go higher than him, because Willikis is built a little bit more like a prototypical 4.3 end. But you could still see him very easily being a double-digit sack kind of guy just because he's such a unique problem for offensive tackles to deal with, just like Brandon Graham is. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles go after Anai because they have a guy already there who I think can be a good mentor for him. And at the very least, I mean, you know how the Eagles love their pass rushers. They always want to have multiple waves of guys, and Graham's getting a little bit long in the tooth. I could see that as a fit. They're not scared of his proportions because they know that he can still be effective despite them. Not even despite, I would say because of them, because of the unique challenges he presents to tall, long offensive tackles. So, Anai, I think, showed that in the one-on-ones to a lot of scouts that were there, that he can still be a remarkably effective edge rusher and beat up on the top offensive tackles that college football had to offer, or at least some of the top offensive tackles. And I'm really excited to see what he does in the pros because he is a really damn good player, a very well-developed player, and I tend to have an affinity for Utah guys because they always come into the league well-coached, and I think Anai is just another example of that. And then moving on to the last two guys I want to talk about, kind of moving into the DBs, I have a corner and I have a safety that I want to talk about. The corner is one that you've probably heard a lot since the Senior Bowl happened a few weeks ago, and that's Darnay Holmes from UCLA. He was creating a buzz on every single rep. And after that, I didn't really watch him that much going into the Senior Bowl because I just didn't have time to. Again, I was really busy during the season. So some of these one-on-ones were like my first exposure to these guys. And when you watch Holmes for the first time, and the first time you see him is live, and you see his footwork, you see his hips, the explosiveness, the competitiveness, I mean, he is nasty out there. I mean, he is fighting tooth and nail to the ball every single rep. He didn't win all of them, but, I mean, he was always in position. He wasn't taking anything from all these receivers. Every single receiver at the Senior Bowl, by the way, is a starting caliber NFL receiver. Like, that was the best group of wide receivers the Senior Bowl has ever had, and it's not close. Every single one of them will be drafted, and I would be willing to bet if you had to put an over-under on 90% of them being starters by year 2, you would hit the over. I really would. Even guys like Claypool, you can't keep them off the field. They are all remarkably talented. It's the best group I've ever seen there, at least. And for Holmes to compete against that group and not only survive, but have a good showing and win on a lot of reps, and at least the ones that he didn't win on, he was still right there in position and just got beat, by their pure receiving talent. I can't speak enough about him. And after that, I kind of went back and I looked at the All-22 that I have of UCLA versus OU because I wanted to see how he did against OU's offense, which was amazing. And again, it was the same kind of thing. Like, even on snaps where he got beat, it wasn't by a lot. And he was playing zone, he was playing press man. I think you can put him in the slot and he'll be fine because his feet are so good. He can do anything. I think if you're trying to create a comparison for him in the league, I almost liken him to like a Casey Hayward, where, again, it's the same guy. You can put him anywhere on the field. You can play him in zone. You can play him in man. And he's super competitive. He's that kind of guy. And he's not even going to go in the first round. He's going to go on day 2, most likely. But he's going to be a 10-year pro. He's going to be a starter for you, probably from day 1, especially if you're drafting him as high as I think he should be drafted. He's perfect. He's perfect. Like, he is my kind of corner prospect. One that you don't need to spend a top 10 pick on, but that you're going to get starting caliber production from. I love Darnay Holmes. I really do. I can't wait to see where he goes in the league because he fits everywhere. And then my final guy is a safety who's, if you're in the quote-unquote draft community, you've probably heard of him. That's Kyle Duggar from Lenore-Ryan. He really got his name from just being a freak athlete, but when you watch him at the Senior Bowl and you saw him directing traffic on the second level, you saw him aggressively filling downhill against the run in team period, you saw how he interacted with guys on the sidelines. He is a leader. He was returning. He was on coverage teams. He played strong and free. They put him down at nickel a few reps just to see what his man-to-man skills were. I mean, he does everything. I mean, he's probably a couple biscuits away from playing will linebacker, too. I mean, he's big. He's like 6 foot 219, something like that, but he says he's going to run 4.3, which I don't doubt it. Just looking at the recovery speed he had on an interception earlier in the week. I mean, holy shit, this guy can run. And I mean, he's smart, he's a leader, he's got special teams versatility, he's got positional versatility. He's going to go high. I mean, really high. He might be a top 3 safety in this whole class. And it really just depends on how you like the LSU and Alabama kids compared to him. Because I think when he gets to the combine, if he's accurate and when he estimated he's going to hit 4.3, I mean, shit, how do you not take him in the first round? I mean, he's going to go really high. He'll probably be one of the highest drafted D2 players ever, in my estimation. But that's just me. I love Duggar. He's an easy grade for me. And I really can't wait to see where he goes. And yeah, that'll probably wrap it up here. I guess I didn't drink my whiskey fast enough, so I'll just down that after I finish. I don't really know how to end videos like this because I haven't done a whole lot of on-camera stuff for you guys, but I'm going to have to learn how because I'm renovating my office upstairs to do more stuff like this. The film room's not going away, by the way. That format's staying with me forever. I'm still doing one of those every single week, but starting this summer and then this coming season, you're going to see a lot more stuff like this where I'm just talking about a specific topic that I don't get to do a film room on, and I'm also launching a podcast, and eventually I'll maybe have merchandise coming out because some of you guys have wanted that too. Yeah, it's kind of a big year for me. Not gonna lie, a little bit terrifying because this channel has grown far bigger than I ever thought it would, and maybe even thought it should. Because yeah, this is definitely a journey that I did not expect to be on about 3 years ago. But thank you to everybody who has been with me during this whole ride. I owe everything to you guys. So if you like just kind of having these little chats about football with me, in addition to the film room stuff, feel free to let me know. If you want me to launch a podcast and would listen to that, feel free to let me know. Because there's a lot of stuff that I want to do, but I don't know how interested people would be in it. So yeah, I'm kind of winging it, man. I feel like I'm an actual YouTuber now, and that scares the shit out of me. So I'll probably be drinking a lot more of this Glenfiddich 15. Again, thank you guys. And I'm going to just keep... you know what? That helps. But yeah, again, I'll be back next week with actual film room episodes. I think I'm starting off with Chase Young and then Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, all those kind of guys. So again, those will be back. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know what kind of shit you want to see, and I'll make it, because that's what this channel's about. I make what you guys want to see. So, yeah, I'll see you guys next week. Film room's coming back, and hopefully I'll be sober by then. Later.